Breaking Chains with Rock.
All right, welcome everybody to show number 6 with Breaking Chains with Rock. I got a wonderful friend here with a great testimony. You want to introduce yourself, ma'am?
Of course. My name is Laura Rivera. I'm from Nogales, Arizona. I reside here in Tucson. However, I've been part of this Christian community for a very long time. I do worship. I do many Bible studies. I do celebrate recovery. And I'm just very blessed to be part of this show tonight.
Yes, I was really excited to have you on. As soon as you reached out to me about all these trials that you overcame, and for those that don't know, I do this show to inspire people, to give people hope, people struggling with addiction, any kind of just any kind of setbacks that hindering them from freedom, from peace, from being able to live life with joy. And every story hits everybody different. I do this all for the love. There's many opportunities that I had, and it's something about the podcast that my friend Orlando Ramos brought up to me that really stuck to me, and he's the one that gave me the idea, and I just ran with it, and it's brought me here. So we're gonna dig in right away. So Laura, let's talk about how you were brought up. Where were you born? And let's start from the beginning real quick.
Amen. Well, first of all, I do want to say something. Me and you just became like Facebook friends, like what, maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going through a lot of stuff, but I did see some of your testimony and everything. And sometimes God brings things to the surface, right? And he places people in people's life for a purpose. So I firmly believe in that. And I'm honored, like I said, to be here and to watch your journey as well. But so I'm from Nogales. I'm a border town girl. At the age of 11 is when my parents brought us to church. My mom met my stepdad, and he was actually a musician in the world. So he got invited to church, and it was kind of like, do you want to do worship? And my stepdad was like, I don't know anything about worship.
Right.
But he said yes. He said yes to the Lord, of course. And that's how our journey began. We were saved through that. I say saved from where we were at the time. I wasn't saved until I was older. Right. Of course, I was too young to know what it was actually to be saved. But I was brought into the church, and it was kind of more religious than anything at that point, because of course it wasn't a demand for me to go to church, but it was kind of like religious. We're going to church on Wednesday. We're going to church on Sunday, and like I said, I did have that upbringing until I was 16, and I got married and left my parents' home.
Well, I remember talking to you earlier, and you told me something else started at a young age.
Oh, yeah.
You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
I do want to elaborate on that because my mom was a single parent, and of course, back then we didn't have cell phones or anything, so nothing was recorded. So at a very young age, actually at the age of 12, I had a lot of friends that we used to do sleepovers, and I started drinking at that age. It was fun. It wasn't, it was something that made me feel good. Kind of, like I said, I grew up pretty much on my own for a long time. My mom was a single parent up until she met my stepdad. But to us, the drinking part brought a little bit of joy to us because we were doing something that wasn't allowed. And also it made us feel good for a while, So,
was alcohol the only thing that you experimented with?
No. I did do other drugs. When I was a little bit older, I did get into cocaine. And I knew there was a problem when I used to go to work and I was on it.
Right.
But mostly my thing of choice was alcohol. I loved drinking. I loved going out. I loved partying. And I would come to Tucson drive from Nogales to Tucson, and we would go partying, and then I'd drive back like that, and it was so irresponsible. And I remember, like, God, look at everything you saved me from,
Right.
you know?
Oh yeah.
And like I mentioned to you before, I was not in a good place in my life. I was a mom at a very young age. I was actually 17 when I had my first daughter. And because of my worldly life, my parents kind of took custody of her. Well, they took custody of all my kids because I was very irresponsible.
Right. So when you started experimenting with other things other than alcohol, um how long did it take you before you actually were able to stop it completely?
I think it took me a couple of years, to be honest with you, because of course, when you're in the party scene, it's like normal for everyone.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's kind of normal, but like I mentioned, once I started doing it when I was working because I was tired, then it became a problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I started recognizing, like, what am I doing? Like, and like I mentioned, I grew up in the church from the age of 11. And I always felt like there was a calling on my life, but I didn't quite understand it because, again, it's not religion. It's not a relationship. It's a religion when you first come to Christ,
Right.
you know, when you don't have an understanding of it. So to me, I was living life the way I knew how to live it, you know, and because my parents took custody of my children, I was out doing my thing. Like, I would not see my kids for weekends. Sometimes I would disappear. My parents didn't know where I was, you know, and it was like a lot of things that, again, that God has saved me from.
Did you ever consider rehab? Did you ever go to rehab or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I didn't go to rehab because I felt like the Lord could help me,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did have friends that helped me back in the day. I did have friends that supported me in a lot of ways, a lot of Christian friends that would pray for me. I think that what changed my life was kind of being homeless, ending up with nothing, because I was married at a very young age. Then I got divorced, and the person that I was married with kind of left me with nothing, you know, and I was living in this small little trailer in a garage, and I kind of looked at my life and I was like, where am I headed?
Right.
You know, at that point, like, do I really want to keep doing this? Do I really want to continue on this life? Because then at that point, I'm like, where is this going to lead to? You know, other drugs, other desires, other wants, other basically needs, because at that point it's like a need, you know?
Yeah. So once you so let's pick up where you said you had your first kid at 17, and then you got a divorce a few years after that.
I was divorced by the time I was 23 years old, so I was pretty devastated. That's kind of what pushed me into the world. Cause I was married at 16 and I never partied. I would drink and stuff like that, but I never really partied up until I got divorced. When I got divorced is when I was like, I'm not doing this, because where is this leading me to? Like, I kind of left the church, you know, and did my own thing for years. I started smoking. I would smoke all the time. But yeah, the drinking.
Smoking cigarettes, or
I would smoke cigarettes, and I mean, I experimented with weed too.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of my drugs of choice too. Like,
Yeah.
I liked it, you know.
Yeah.
I liked how it made me feel, and I was always relaxed when I was on that. And
So like filling a void.
filling a void that could not be filled with anything. I thought it could be filled with that, you know, and to me that was filling. Alcohol was very filling to me, and I would embarrass myself like you have no idea.
Like being drunk, right?
Yeah, I would embarrass myself bad.
Like you would black out a lot.
I would black out. My ex-husband was a police officer in Nogales.
Whoa.
And I remember that at night, like in the morning hours, they would post up at the border, and I would go to Mexico to party thinking nobody's gonna see me, right? No, people would see me, and when I would cross back, he would be embarrassed because of my actions, and, you know, falling over and dancing on bar tables, and, you know, all those things that, you know.
All those things that people are ashamed to talk about. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's one thing. That's one thing about this show, that I feel that people need to recognize.
Mhm.
Holding all that shame inside is not going to help you grow,
Right.
because it's releasing that self inventory, right? Like, what do I need to work on? Like, where do I fail? And some people get overwhelmed because you got this humongous page, this list of
Right.
of things you need to work on, and you don't even know where to get started, right? And at first, people, they hear all this. Well, you need help. Like,
Right.
and when you're in a situation where you're addicted to drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be, the last word you want to hear is help.
Right.
So
And my mom, I feel like I'm the product of a praying mother.
right, amen.
I am. I'm the product of praying parents because God knows my sister still makes cracks jokes about this. She says that I'm still the black sheep of the family,
Right.
because again, I would always disappear. And you know what's crazy? I didn't realize how much I hurt my children,
Right.
back then. That's what was heartbreaking for me. I didn't realize what I did to them, leaving them and not being the present mother. But let me tell you, that all comes back to you when you're old and you want to try to have that relationship with your children.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, only God can restore that.
Oh yeah.
No one else can restore that.
Yeah.
But it was a ride. It was a wild ride for me.
Yeah. So how many children you have now?
I have 3.
You have 3.
I have 3 daughters.
So after you got divorced, you got remarried.
I did. I got remarried to Joseph.
Uh-huh.
I was married to Joseph for 15 years, but
Where'd you guys meet?
we met at work. Actually, we used to work at a nursing home together.
Okay.
And I met him, and from the beginning, it was sparks. We were so attracted to each other, and it was very, very toxic, very toxic. And actually, Joseph used to drink a lot, used to do
So you found yourself going into the same environment you just got out of.
and eat worse.
Okay.
It was worse. And I hadn't exactly gotten out of it when I met him. I was still
You're still
I was
dabbling.
still there. Yeah. I was still in and out. I would go to church to please my parents, at that time, and just to be around my family, because that was the thing to do with them. My parents, have been faithful servants for a very, very long time. And if I wanted to be around them, I had to go to church on Sundays. But when I met Joseph, yeah, I was still out doing my thing. I was still out drinking and partying and everything. And then when I met him, our relationship was very, very toxic because again, he was on everything. Like for him, the sky was the limit. You know what I mean?
While working?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Joseph was someone that he didn't know how to stop at a 6-pack. He had to do a 30-pack.
Wow.
That's the type of person he was.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of good to him. He was a very loving man. He would give you the shirt off his back, and everything. But that's the truth. Like, we had a very, very toxic relationship because of the things that we both did, going into this relationship.
So you were with him for 15 years.
15 years.
Okay, 15 years. But then something happened.
A lot of things happened, yeah. So, Joseph, I watched him get into a lot of recreational drugs. I watched him
Harder
drugs. Oh yeah. Actually, I went to respiratory school, and because I was so busy, he found himself in a hole. Like, he started doing really hard drugs, and I never thought that I would ever see that day. But I mean, also he started drinking when he was 13 years old, and to him it was to fill a void. Yeah. Because I know that he went through a lot of hardships when he was a young man, so he tried to fill a void, and it was hard for him to stop, and he was a general manager at a restaurant, and he lost everything because of his drug addiction. and he ended up homeless on the streets for a year and a half, and him and I were separated at
Wow.
that point.
So, so you can agree that basically any type of alcohol or drug could be a gateway.
Oh yeah.
You know, because some people they're they'll disagree. They'll be like, "Oh, marijuana is not a gateway drug," or or light beer is not a gateway to. You understand what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
he started off as a what would you call it? Um, someone that's able to manage their addiction and work.
Fully functional.
Yeah, fully functional addict,
was.
right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that might last for a while. It might last for a little long while, but when it goes bad, it goes bad.
Right.
I mean, it's just unraveling until you're done. Like, I mean, it could happen in a couple of weeks, a couple of months,
Yeah.
and I can relate, just completely homeless, right?
Completely homeless on the streets. We had a home, we had vehicles, his job that he had a very good job. And yeah, he ended up homeless. I remember one of the last times that I spoke to him before he went to rehab, actually, he called me and he said that he was hungry, and I would keep his phone on. I would pay his phone so that I knew where he was.
Right.
And then I could call him in the morning and make sure that he was still alive, and nobody really knows that side of addiction, like the family members that suffer through that. And that's what I had told you. That's why I had reached out to you. But watching him, that time I went to where he was at. He told me specifically where he was. He was on Speedway and Speedway and Columbus at the 7-Eleven. And I did not recognize him.
Wow. Yeah.
I hadn't seen him in months. And I didn't recognize him, and I started crying because I was like, how can you do this to yourself? And he looked at me and I said, you know what? I said, if you want to kill yourself, go ahead. I said, but I don't want to watch anymore. And I told him it'll be the last time me and you ever speak. And at that point, we had been separated for over a year because of his addiction. And something changed. I went home that night and I prayed to God. I was like, God, why do I get to sleep in a warm bed and my husband's out there on the streets? God knows where he's sleeping. And he called me the next day and he said he was ready to go to recovery. So I drove him to Compass Detox. He detoxed and then he went to the Victory Outreach Men's Home. And he was there for 6 months. And he fully recovered. Fully recovered. Yeah, 6 months. And then we went into ministry and we did a lot of things together. If there's anything that I learned from him, was how to be a soldier.
Wow.
He was very streetwise. He knew the Lord. He loved the Lord with all of his heart. He prayed for people. When he passed away, there was probably 300 people at his funeral because he had a Bible study at the Gospel Rescue Mission. He had a Bible study at Teen Challenge, and then he had the Bible study at our church, Praise Chapel, and we were serving and everything. And he loved people. He wanted people to experience exactly what he had experienced,
right?
Through salvation.
And especially coming from somebody that was in the streets, right? And
Right.
then was able to go to. So it's one thing to being on the streets homeless, right? And then go get help, go to rehab, right? And then get out of the rehab and not just live a stagnant life. Like, okay, well, what do I do now? I'm gonna get a 9 to 5, right? And I'm gonna do that repetitively with no purpose. Just I'm gonna go to work, I'm gonna get my check, I'm gonna pay my bills, and then I guess I'm gonna go out and still eventually dabble on alcohol, or if I don't, maybe I do stay clear of drugs and alcohol, but there's still a void that's missing. There's no purpose, or maybe there is, but then when tragedy strikes, where am I gonna run to?
Right.
To my friends that say, hey, come over, we can have some drinks and talk about this, or whatever the case may be. So he got sober, and then he found a great purpose, started his walk. And how long was he doing that for?
He did that for 8 years.
Wow, 8 years.
8 years
8 years.
before he died. Yeah. So something changed.
Do you have an idea
Yeah,
what you do?
I do. So the man that got him into using the first time
Mm-hmm.
came out of prison,
Oof.
and it was 12 years.
He did a 12-year
He did
stretch.
a 12-year stretch.
Okay.
Um and Joseph, like any other person, he wanted to save them.
Like, come through.
And
I got a
he was
great
like,
program for you and
right.
all that stuff.
And he told me, I'm going to meet with this person. And I told him, for me, accountability is a big thing. You know, you got to be accountable to your leaders. You got to be accountable to your pastor. And I told him, you know, make sure you take accountability with you.
Yeah, take a partner.
Take someone with you so
Yeah.
that, you know, they keep you. And he's like, I'm fine. I am fine.
He's
And
like, I got 8 years on my back.
and that was in January of 2022.
Hmm.
January of 2022. And Joseph passed away April 10th of 2022. And unfortunately, he relapsed, you know, and I did not know. But when God gives you discernment on things, you better pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? God had already showed me that I was going to be by myself.
Wow.
I think it was after a worship practice. I talk about this all the time, actually. I was leaving worship practice and I was driving home. And to me, you know, to be with someone for 15 years, that's your life, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
Of course, it's God and then your spouse. But at that point, like, I didn't know anything else except for him, the life that I had with him. And I remember getting to the light on 22nd and the freeway. And I was just, you know, in my worship and everything. And God's like, you better prepare yourself. I heard the voice of the Lord tell me, prepare yourself because you're going to be alone. And I was like, no, I don't want to. You know, why would you tell me that?
Right.
I wouldn't even know what to do, you know. And the day he passed away, I was already at church.
Mm.
I was at church and he stayed back. He used to stay back because I used to go to worship practice. And my daughter called me and she's like, I can't find dad. And he had passed away outside. He had, all it took was one fentanyl pill
Wow. That's when they started coming out heavy.
and it killed him.
Yeah.
And the thoughts that ran through my head, because I am a respiratory therapist and I code people, and I'm like, I could have been there and I could have done something.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, that wasn't God's plan,
Right.
you know, and I didn't know what had happened when he was taken by the coroner until after. And I really don't talk about this because I feel like God is glorified through his life.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
God has been glorified through his life and through the people that he was able to help save. You know, and like I said, he was a wonderful man of God. He loved God, but unfortunately, we all fall short of his glory, you know, and those are the things that happen. And we're not, sometimes we don't, we don't accept things. And when we have issues, when we have problems, he didn't think he had a problem. He think that he was going to maybe do it once and then quit. You know what I mean? But there was a lot of things that once everything happened that kind of just connected for me. I was like, oh, this happened and that happened. And
You kind of put it together.
I started putting the
you saw
pieces
it come in,
together. And then actually the day before he passed away, he told me, I feel death all around me.
wow.
And I said to him, why would you say that to me?
Right. Right.
You know, don't say that. You better pray that out because I'm not going to do this life without you. You know, and it was a hard hit for me. It was a very hard hit for me. Um, you know, like I said, unfortunately, things happen, but I do believe that when things happen like this at the end of life, God gives everybody an opportunity to repent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I know that because God is graceful, God is merciful. You know, he went to the cross for us. And I know in my heart and I believe that God never wastes a battle. you know, and if there's anything that happened through his passing, was that I came to life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, a lot of people, you know what, that's the difference between people that have a relationship and that don't have a relationship. When things like this happen, the average person would be have hatred towards God,
Right.
and it would just tear them apart even more, you know. And to be able to see this as opportunity for growth, because it's some things we'll never understand, right? And
Right.
and that's what people, they can't wrap their head around, that, like, why, right? And so especially the whole thought of being alone. I honestly, I used to be that person where I didn't want to be alone, right? And through this whole walk that I've had, the more I read the Bible, the more I go to men's group, the more I go to service, the more I worship, the more revelation I get to God speaking, hey, you need me first. I'll bring you somebody and you're gonna know. You're gonna know.
Yeah.
So don't trip, you know.
Right.
Don't be out there seeking, you know. Don't be out there trying to reel them in, you know. So I mean, for you to be able to acknowledge the fact that this whole time was time for you to get closer to God, you know, a higher purpose, you know.
Right.
Even though it struck you in the heart, I'm sure 15 years of being together, I couldn't imagine. And honestly, I mean, just, yeah, I'm sure he was a great dad. And you know, I'm sorry for your loss. And I just, you know, I can honestly say that you know, everything you got going on, like you said, you're gonna be part of the women's retreat coming up.
I am Builder Up 2025. I will be leading worship there. I'm so excited. It's
Where is it at?
first annual. It's in, what is it?
Forest Falls?
Forest Falls.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so excited to go. It's been a great blessing. I was invited to do worship there, and it's just another opportunity, you know. But I did, when Joseph passed away, I did talk about passing the mantle, right? When he was alive, I was the person in the background. Like, I didn't want to do anything. Like, don't even speak to me because I'm scared. You know what I mean? Like, Joseph was the one that was like, we're gonna go to the alleys on South 6 and we're gonna,
He was like a public speaker.
oh yeah, he would go, and he was an evangelist, and he would go out there to, like, the highways and the byways, you know, like South 6, the alleys, and he's like, we're gonna go pray for people back there. And I'm like, I'm scared, I don't want to go. But
Right.
he wanted
Because he's
to
like,
go.
I've been back there.
And now I'm like, God put so much drive in me, like the heart that he had. It's like he passed the mantle to me, you know. And Joseph was rough. Like, I talk about this all the time, because you know how John the Baptist was. Like, he was rough around the edges. He said things that people didn't like most of the time, and that was him.
His character.
You know. But he used to say, I'd rather people, how did you used to say it? I'd rather people hate me all the way to heaven than love me all the way to hell. He used to speak truth. He used to speak life. You know what I mean? And that's something that he instilled in me. Like, I want to help people, but also through this season, that's why I go to CR too, you know, for grief support, because it was a hit, because it was a loss. Because one thing I never did was question why God did anything, you know, because it's not my job to question what God does. I know that, again, through this, I have grown a lot, I have matured a lot, and I know what God is doing within me, you know. And I know that we can't play with fire. You know what I mean? We can't.
Yeah.
You know, I tried my best. And sometimes I was like, was I not praying enough? Was I not that supportive wife that he needed? What was it? But the truth of the matter was that it only took 2 weeks. You know, 2 weeks.
Wow.
You know, he had a whole background in that, and 8 years of sobriety. You know, he even had a heart transplant.
Wow. During that time.
During his sobriety. You know what I mean? And to just,
wow.
you know?
Yeah, and that's the dangerous part of the whole sobriety, you know. People that have time under their belt, even people that have, like, you know, they'll be like, hey, I'm 2 years sober, you know, let's go out there to the streets and let's go talk to some people, right? And they'll be like, oh wow, that wasn't even my choice of drug or whatnot. But sometimes, even having a spouse, they might not even be honest with you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because obviously something was going on there, right? I mean, it could have been the smallest thing too,
Yeah.
to have that much time under your belt, and to have that much compassion in his walk,
Right.
right? It was something, that we might, I mean, maybe you have a better idea, but you understand what I'm saying. It's just like it's so important to, once you get into this realm, this spiritual realm, it's so important to every day stay in contact. I'm talking about relationship.
Right.
Read your Bible, pray, or have, like you said, accountability. Number one, my brother Danny Gonzalez, shout out to my boy Danny Gonzalez, Water Walkers worldwide. He's telling me, hey, you always got to have somebody who tells you no.
Absolutely.
People don't like correction,
Right.
right? You're never gonna grow
Right.
if you can't be corrected. Hey, don't talk to that girl, bro.
Mhm.
Oh, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
She's a great like, listen,
Yeah.
I'm telling you from love.
Yeah.
And this is someone I speak to on a regular basis and whatnot, and they have godly wisdom.
Right.
You know exactly what I mean.
That comes with maturity.
Yeah, dude.
That's all about
Wisdom,
maturity.
discernment. I
Yeah.
mean, people that have time, in their walk and been through the fire and got raised and put on the rock, and they're gonna, if they tell you no, it's for a real good reason, And I'm glad I got to a stage in my life where just recently, and I'm gonna be honest, just recently I started being able to accept the no's, because like I've changed so much, to the music I listen to, and I've said this previously in other shows. The music, right? I'm gonna be real. Like just lately, and like I don't even curse no more, right? But lately I've had some emotional mix-ups, where I let the emotions beat me, and I don't ride by the spiritual, you know what I'm saying, by where I'm supposed to be, and I'll slip and say some curse words or whatnot. But that whole staying intact, me reading the word has kept me at peace, and sometimes I'll be reading it and I don't understand it, right? And then I'll be having a conversation with somebody maybe a week later, and for some reason a sentence, maybe a couple words out of that verse, out of that whole page I didn't even understand, will come up. It's that whole, like, when you really surrender to God and the Holy Spirit really takes a hold of you,
Amen.
and situations like this are just eye openers. He was sober for 8 years and he overdosed and died.
Yeah.
Just like that.
Just like that.
And this guy, I mean, powerful, sounds like a extremely powerful individual, and me, I have great plans. I was homeless in the streets. I was living under the tunnels. I was living in the desert. My dad's right here in the background. He used to go look for me, and I was in the desert, literally in the washes, literally like in these camps. And I have plans to go out there, right? And go reach out, because I've been there. I know what it's like, right? And it's crazy because now it's coming back to me. The people who really care for me, the people from my circle, my tight circle at church, they're like, we got to go together.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. He's like, we got to go together. Not because I'm weak. It's because we're stronger together.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And then boundaries.
Right.
I mean, I know I'm strong enough to do whatever I got to do, but why am I going to meet up with somebody that has a complete different mindset? How about we start out by inviting them to church? Meet up in places like that instead of like the house, or you understand what I'm saying? But yeah, it can happen to anybody. It really can, because I've relapsed so many times. That could have been me. I was sober for a year, and then I met up with someone, and I relapsed and overdose, and I was in the hospital, and by the graces of God, they brought me back to life.
Amen.
And that was for a reason. And you weren't there for a reason, like you said. You ain't questioning God.
No.
And honestly, you can't, because that wasn't your walk.
It wasn't.
You know what I'm saying?
That was something like I always say, it's something he chose.
Right.
And that's what angered me.
Right.
His choice, not not what God did, because again, when we love God, when we say we love God, what do? Our desire is to be close to God,
Right.
through his word, through worship and everything. And it's crazy because when I look back and think about things and how they happened, there was a time where he started talking about people, and I hadn't heard him speak about people in a while. So I knew that for some reason
Behaviors, right?
he was taking his eyes off God and putting them on man.
Right.
And we can't do that. You know, it's like when God told the disciples to get out of the boat, you know,
Mm-hmm.
very, very powerful story.
Mm-hmm.
And if they kept their eyes on God, they wouldn't sink in the water while they're walking towards him. But as soon as they started taking their eyes off of him, they would start sinking.
Right.
You know why? Because God is our lifeline. He's our lifeguard. Once we keep our eyes on him, then nothing can go wrong. I mean, we're still going to have our trials. We're still going to have our tribulations. We're flesh. We're human. We're still going to have wants and needs and everything. Like you tell me, oh, you're alone. I don't feel like I'm lonely. It's just the void of not having him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Of course.
That's what it is. I talk about him because it has helped me, but I feel like doing this now. Actually, a few weeks ago, I was at Celebrate Recovery, and there was a group of women that graduated from Celebrate Recovery, and they were talking about their healing, and one of them talked about how she needed to forgive her dad,
Right.
And I'm telling you, I was sitting there crying and at that second row. I was like, God, what are you doing? I think I have it together. You know what I mean? I don't need to be crying in front of people, but I was broken. I was broken because why? Because God's trying to surface everything so he can cut it out.
Prune you.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like my shirt says, coming out refined, coming out gold.
Job 23:10.
Yeah, and you can't go through the fire, because if you go through the fire and you're not ready, you're gonna get burned.
Right.
You know what I mean? But once you go through the fire and you're ready, you're gonna get refined.
Right.
And that's completely up to you, whatever you're going to decide to do. You got to be strong in the Lord. You know what I mean? We falter. I fall short every day. I mean, I don't want to downplay the fact that I'm not human.
Right.
But honestly, in this time, I thought it was the perfect opportunity because it is part of my healing.
Right.
It's part of my journey because I haven't really spoken about it.
Right.
You know why? Because I was like, people should only know the good, but it's not that. People need to know the truth.
Yeah, it's not that you think that you're better than everybody else. You just make better choices.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And that's why
it's maturity.
A lot of people, they'll say things like, "Oh, look at him. He don't do anything no more. He's too good for everybody." I'm like, "No, I just make better choices,
Right.
It doesn't mean I don't fall short and make mistakes that I regret,
Exactly.
I mean, we can sit here and talk about all kinds of little things, but that's besides the point, just the fact that you're now giving back to the community even more. Can you just elaborate a little bit real quick about what Celebrate Recovery is?
So Celebrate Recovery is an amazing program. So you go there for basically support. There's a bunch of support groups there. There's one on grief. There's one on chemical. If you've ever been, involved in drugs, alcohol, or anything like that, there's one for sexual addiction. And you go basically and learn about 12 steps. And
faith-based. So it's a complete different ballgame.
Faith-based 12 steps. Totally teaches you on grace, because what happens when we do things, we hold ourselves captive. We don't believe that God can step in and save us.
Right. People are like, what do you mean?
We keep ourselves in bondage and chains and everything and forget that God is our Redeemer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And one of the most important things that I learned while going there was that I depended on other people, like others' emotions. I was codependent on other people's emotions to make me happy. So like with Joseph, if he was happy, I was happy.
So he was your rock.
He was my rock. You know what I mean? So if he was mad, I was mad. If he was sad, I was sad. You know? Everything that I could do to please him, I would.
A lot of people don't know about
And
that.
I didn't know about that.
Codependency on emotions.
Right.
Right. So like if you go home and your spouse is upset, guess what? It's all bad.
Right.
Instead of one being able to, check this out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Help give, like people, like Pastor says, sometimes I need to borrow some faith.
Right.
Right.
Right. So I didn't know what codependency was. And once I learned that, I was like, I refuse to be codependent on anyone,
Yeah.
From now on. Like I feel like those chains were broken for me. Those chains were, that bondage was broken for me ever since I started going there. But again, I tell people right now, I feel like I'm at square one. Like I'm barely starting out my walk again.
Reborn.
Because it's been life-changing for me.
Right.
Not only that, like the sponsors, the women, like the sisterhood. I go to Praise Chapel Tucson and I do worship there. I lead worship there.
How long you been singing?
Since I was 14.
14
years old. My first worship team I joined, I was 14.
Awesome.
But I do sing at Celebrate Recovery too. And then at church. But I have so many women that are so supportive, and I can call my friends and it's 10 o'clock at night and they'll pray with me.
Right.
They'll support me and everything. And like you said, I have those women that are like, no, don't do that.
Right.
We're not going back to that.
Right.
But this was all learned there.
Right.
And which I used to always be that person that kind of stood on my own. Like, I don't need anybody around me.
Pride.
Yeah.
I mean, you ask anybody that's just living life, not with a belief system, and they're quick to answer like, I'm good, I'm okay. Like, what does that mean? Like, nah. Like, if I got a strong faith, and there's a lot wrong with me, like, you know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine. I mean, if I would have been interviewed by you, right, 22 months ago, I've been sober for like 21 months, something like that. And if you would have interviewed me 21 months ago, it would have been depressing.
Really?
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, there's so much, like my mom told me one time she picked me up from the side of the road and I was dirty. I probably weighed like 150 pounds, I look terrible. And she's like, son, why don't you love yourself? She told me that.
Wow.
And I remember telling her, because I don't care.
Right.
I don't care, And then she's like, you want some food? And I was like, I don't care. Just disrespectful to my loving mother. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you said, you're a product of praying. People praying, a praying mother, and my dad, my whole family. I mean, just the church. I had people from, I wasn't even involved in the church, but I had friends that were saved already, and they were out there looking for me.
Amen.
Until they found me. And they found me.
Aren't you grateful for that?
Yes, dude. Listen, they found me, and and you could just feel the presence of God when they came into my dad's apartment. Like, it wasn't like an intimidating feeling. It was like, like, whoa, like my dude is solid.
Yeah.
And they're like, you got to come, It wasn't like, oh, you're going to come, but they're like, come over here.
Yeah.
I promise you,
the things that God does,
makes you think. And I'm looking at them. I'm like, I used to do every drug you can imagine with these guys. And then when I just barely started off, and I was out there dealing drugs and moving weight and doing what I was doing, and I had money, and I looked like a normal person but still partying, it didn't seem so bad, and we were all together at that time. So once all my friends went to prison, and then I was out here, doing my thing, and I got homeless. I lost contact with everybody. But to be able to see people saved when you're not, I can't explain it. I can't explain it. It's just like, it's something drew me in, something drew me in. And now, I gotta be mindful, especially because people do reach out, and I'm sure people reach out to you too, and I don't talk about it to everybody, but people reach out sometimes. And, I got a friend that's like, hey, what's up? I'm trying to go to church, and of course, come through, and, I mean, if they ask me for advice, and I'll be like, well, this is how I did it. This is how I did it. Like, do you have people that reach out to you that are like out there still in the streets,
Yeah,
or
I do.
and is that kind of what you tell them to, like, or how do you like?
I do tell them that, but first of all, so I'm very upfront,
Right.
So I tell people, because Joseph used to be like that. If you want my help, don't waste my time, and it's kind of harsh, but you need to be harsh sometimes with people like that.
Stern.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
you need to, because what are they gonna do? Oh, this guy keeps slapping me in the hand and keeps bringing me back, and he does all these things for me. Then I go back. You know what I mean? You got to be stern with people. And Joseph used to do that, and I've gotten a few calls, and I'm like, there's options, there's places you can go. Let me know when you're ready, and I will take you there.
Right.
I do tell people that. It's funny because one of the girls that was my party buddy, I call her my party buddy back in the day. I just saw her last week, and I hadn't seen her in years. And I was like, man.
Oh, you saw her like on the streets or something?
Mm-hmm. I saw her, and I hadn't seen her like in 15 years. Okay. And I'm like, and she's like, hey, how are you doing? And she's still living her life,
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, hey, we should go out. And I'm like, I don't do that anymore,
They're like, wait, it's like,
Right.
wait, what?
Right.
What do you mean? Like, who are
Yeah.
you? They
But
still
people
make
know.
you?
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I'm too old for that. You know what I mean? Like, my Saturdays and Sundays and my weekends are, with my children, and just be keeping busy
Yeah.
for the God's kingdom, And you invite me somewhere, and you're like, I want you to sing here, I will be there.
Right.
But yeah, life is different. It's not the same. I was in my 20s back then,
Yeah.
when I used to party with her.
Yeah, it's crazy when people, they're like, hey, so they're like, what do you do for fun?
Right.
And it's now I can kind of explain it. I tell them, when I do things for the kingdom, God blesses you with a feeling of joy that you can't explain.
Right.
Yeah. Like when we do things, when we go out to the community and stuff like that, like I get a sense of fulfillment better than any club I've been to, any bar, any concert.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? It's mad. Like you even get tears of joy. And like, man, I can't, it's just, it's a lot more than that though. I mean, there's so many different like assignments, so many different trips that we take. We paintballing, we go movies. These guys are taking trips to Hawaii. They're going to different countries to preach the gospel, and out there taking vacations. Little cliques here and there, and you know what I'm saying. It's just revival. Speaking life.
That's life.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like literally speaking life into broken people, and to be able to leave that mark everywhere you go, representing God, following Jesus, surrendering to God. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that's one thing that I want people to know as well. When people see me, I want people to see that it is well. You know what I mean? No matter the circumstance or what I faced, I'm here, I'm standing, God's grace is over me, and I'm never going to quit. I'm going to keep going as long as he permits me to, as long as I'm able to.
Right.
And that's my life. Ministry. People trip out on me when I tell them that I'm accountable to my pastors. And I got to ask my pastors, why do they run your life? It's not about them running my life. It's about me being accountable to them, because I know who I was in the world.
Yeah.
Because I know who I was when I was lost. You know what I mean? I have my parents who, again, I'm very accountable to them as well. But I'm very accountable to my pastors, and they know my whole life. They'll know where I'm at, day and night. So I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful again that God permits me to do all these things. I'm able to do all these things.
Who are your pastors?
Pastor Joe and Diana Naranjo at Praise Chapel Tucson. They're amazing.
Shout out to the pastors.
Shout out to
my pastors, Scotty, Zion City. Hey, shout out to Pastor Waylon, Flowing Wells campus as well. Amazing ministry. A lot of these people I haven't have relationships with, you know what I mean, except Scott, Pastor Scotty, amazing pastors. It's crazy how when you have a relationship with your pastor,
Mhm.
it is a beautiful feeling. I seen the smile on your face.
Yeah.
It says it all. Accountability, man, it's a beautiful thing.
But remember, I told you I was lost. Like people didn't know where I was for weekends. You know what I mean? But God came and changed all that in me.
Yeah.
He removed all that pride. He removed everything from me, and I can genuinely be accountable because I'm honest. Because I'm truthful, because I'm transparent. Only God does those things. Because when we're in our mess, what do we do? We're liars. You know, we steal, we do things that we're not proud of.
Yeah, it's overwhelming when you think about how he changes everything. I mean everything. And then when you do fall short, you do that self inventory. I'm like, wow, I actually did this and I haven't done that in a long time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like literally cleans your slate.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, we're gonna fall short. We're gonna fall short. But it's one thing to get clean, but it's another thing to have a sober mind.
Right.
Two complete different ball games.
Right.
I got friends, and I've been there before, of course. So I'm not gonna judge, but I'm just saying, they get clean, but they're still out here talking to 10 different women, fornicating with 10 different women, still doing their gambling, still drinking alcohol, but they don't do drugs, so they feel like
it's all right.
It's all right, and I wish everyone the best, but I know what it took for me to change all of that. And it's a beautiful thing.
God continues his work.
It's a beautiful thing. So before we end the show, you said you wanted to sing a little bit.
No, not today.
Well, anyway, maybe you know what? Maybe next time
I'll come back, just because I've been sick for like the whole week, and I just don't want my voice to crack.
Well, maybe we'll figure something out.
Yeah, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, I promise I'll be back to sing.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. We'll shut it down right there, but it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
And I know it's gonna touch a lot of people. It's definitely a very strong testimony, being able to show the strength after so much happening, and you're still here and still motivated. So
amen. And God gets all the glory.
Amen.
Amen.
Absolutely.
But thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm grateful.
For sure.
Yeah.
Peace.
Breaking chains.